News. Now, we know that Lisa Page, she has been testifying behind closed doors, and some of the information that she has been talking about is now getting out, and it looks like she might have flipped and she might be looking for some type of immunity deal. Now, Lisa Page basically tossed James Comey, Andrew McCabe, Peter Strzok, and Bill Priestap, among others, under the bus. And what she went on to say was that these individuals, well, they concealed intelligence confirming Chinese state-backed assets had acquired, of course illegally, all this information from Hillary Clinton. And they were able to access the emails and everything else. So it looks like the Chinese actually did this. And was it illegally accessed, or did Clinton actually sell information to the Chinese? I'm thinking that's exactly what happened, because all she had to do is leave the server unsecure and allow the Chinese to hack into it, which would not be very difficult at all, and to say, I didn't do anything, they got into the system. So from everything that Lisa Page is saying and everything, all the information that she's putting out there, it looks like she's looking for an immunity deal. It looks like she's cooperating, and she might have flipped here, and she'll probably give more information. Now, the deep state, they're very worried about this, and we know that during the summer prior to the summit, Mueller came out and indicted like 12 Russians, whatever, and Mueller knows that these Russians are not going to come to America. He knows because under Russia's constitution, it shields its citizens from extradition and deportation. And the U.S. does not have an extradition treaty with Russia. Article 61 of the Russian Constitution forbids extradition. A citizen of the Russian Federation may not be deported from Russia or extradited to another state. So Putin came out and he denied that those named in the indictment were working on behalf of his government. He said that the Russian government could question those accused of election meddling if the U.S. and Mueller utilized the 1999 Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters. And that is a criminal matters treaty that he's talking about. He can use this treaty, he said, as a solid foundation and send formal and official requests to us so that we could interrogate all the questioning of these individuals who he believes are privy to some crimes, and our law enforcement are perfectly able to do this questioning and send the appropriate materials to the United States. Actually, Putin went a step further. He said that he will allow U.S. officials and members of Mueller's team to be present at the questioning if the U.S. would reciprocate, and allow Russian officials to be present at the questioning of certain U.S. intelligence and law enforcement officials. Well, I think this should be done. Do you think Mueller's going to go for this? Most likely not. And this would be Mueller's worst nightmare. Now, Mueller, he's in the process of protecting his people. Because right now what we're hearing is that Mueller is seeking immunity for 5 witnesses against Manafort. And we know that Manafort was a plant, according to Q. So special counsel Robert Mueller's team is asking a federal judge to grant immunity to 5 witnesses who may be called to testify at the upcoming trial of Paul Manafort. Now, we don't know who these individuals are, but we suspect 2 of them, these 2 key witnesses, they might be the Podesta brothers. Now, think about what Mueller is doing right now. He's protecting certain individuals and giving them immunity because he knows everything that he's doing right now is completely falling apart. It's all propaganda. Let's see if Mueller takes Putin up on this interrogation, because under the Russian Constitution, they're not going to send anyone here, but he's allowing Mueller to come over there and question these individuals. Now, if Mueller is serious, this is what he would do. And let's see if this goes to the next step. Let's see if he follows through on this, because we saw what happened when the Russian company came here to the U.S. Mueller, he was scrambling. He had no evidence. He couldn't produce anything, still can't. And the Russian company is sitting there going, okay, let's do this. It's his worst nightmare. Now, what's very interesting is that the deep state, they are reeling. They're very nervous about what is happening. And we know that Trump has met with Putin, and they talked about many different things. One of the things that came out was that Trump believed Putin when he said he didn't interfere in the U.S. elections. And of course, the mainstream media, the deep state, they were out there saying that, oh, look, Trump is siding with a foreign leader over the intelligence agencies. Well, this is not exactly what is happening. He's not siding with a foreign leader over the entire U.S. intelligence agencies. He's siding with Putin over those certain individuals in the intelligence agencies that are corrupt, that are criminals. So Trump was going to clear this up, and he was having a press conference, and he expressed how he really felt about the U.S. intelligence agencies, where he said he had the full faith in U.S. intelligence agencies. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the lights suddenly went out. And this is not the first time a mention of the U.S. intelligence agencies was followed by an unexpected blackout. And if we go back to 2016, when Putin was commenting on the sidelines of a BRICS summit in India about the U.S. National Security Agency wiretapping journalists and the possibility of cyber attacks against Russia, the lights in the room suddenly went out as Putin expressed a desire to have friendly relations with the U.S. And Putin was out there and he's saying, oh, something happened, the lights went dark. Trump said the same thing. Oh, look at this, the lights went down. The power was also cut during Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's Senate confirmation hearing last year. The lights went out as Senator Mark Warner was speaking about alleged Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election, adding to the conspiracy theories that dimming the lights might be a subtle CIA tactic to signal its omnipotence. Now, this is very interesting. Now, I know the mainstream media is out there and they're making a really big deal about Trump meeting Putin. But if we look back in time, there are many, many instances when other presidents have met Putin. I mean, we have Obama with Putin. We have George W. Bush with Putin. We have Clinton with Putin. That's Bill Clinton. We have Hillary Clinton with Putin. We have Senior Bush with Putin. I mean, all these leaders have met Putin. Now, did the mainstream media act the way they did when Trump met with Putin? No, they did not. This is how you know this has nothing to do with Putin. This has to do with what is about to happen. Now, allegedly, there is word coming out when Putin met Trump. Putin has about 160 terabytes of communication intercepts. All the people behind fake Russian collusion, false flag chemical attacks in Syria, sabotage of the Brexit, Clinton activities, and much, much more. And it looks like he handed this over to Trump. Now, some of those intercepts reveal who has been financing weapons, supplies, travel, hotel, vehicle rentals, and secure communications gear for terrorist groups inside Syria, Iraq, and other areas. Among the intercepted communications are mostly international phone calls, faxes, emails by members of the U.S. Congress, U.S. Senate, federal judges. And remember, each country spies on each other. Now, some of these communications were encrypted and some were not. And it looks like through the back doors, thanks to the intelligence agencies that they created, it looks like Russia was able to use these to get the information. And it seems that Trump has this information. Now, we understand from Q, they have the DNC server, they have the emails, they have the data from WikiLeaks, and now they have the data from Russia. Now, we know these other countries, especially Russia, they know exactly what's going on here. Because if these individuals within the U.S. are dealing with outside entities in other countries, their communications are going to be intercepted. And this is exactly what has happened. And you can see that most of these individuals, well, they weren't really encrypting. And those that were encrypting, the encryption was broken because of all the back doors. And thank you very much, intelligence agencies, for doing that. You just help them seal the deal against yourself. I mean, think about what is happening here. Now, to take this all a step further, the Trump administration announced it was going to launch a probe whether uranium imports threaten national security. Now, let's think about this a second, because we know Clinton is involved in the Uranium One deal. Q has been telling us what they've been doing with the uranium. And right now, there's a probe which is going to look into uranium imports. Now, of course, the cover story, which I do believe is a cover story, they're saying they're doing this for tariffs. And according to the Commerce Department, the probe will determine whether the present quantity and circumstances of uranium ore and products imports into the U.S. threaten to impair the national security. The probe will cover the entire uranium sector, from the mining industry to enrichment, defense, and industrial consumption. The probe was initiated when U.S. Uranium Producers Energy Fuels Inc. and UR Energy Inc. filed a petition in January asking the Commerce Department to investigate the matter under Section 232 of the 1962 Trade Expansion Act. This is the same provision the president used to slap tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. And all you need to do is take this probe, find out other information, and this then moves into other areas. And I believe this is the approach they are taking. So the deep state right now, they're scrambling. They don't know what to do, because now there's a uranium probe. They have the server. They have the information. They have all these individuals. Individuals are flipping now. Putin is telling Mueller to come over to Russia to interrogate those people he indicted. I mean, think about what is happening here. The whole thing's falling apart. Now, if we move out to the Middle East, we understand that things are falling apart rapidly for the deep state in the Middle East. We know out in Afghanistan, Ghani has been trying to have peace deals with the Taliban. Not going so well, so it looks like the Trump administration is going to be getting involved. Now, Ghani is saying that, listen, we want to handle this ourselves. And remember, how did Ghani get into this position? Well, John Kerry was there during the elections, helped this individual get in there because they needed a bilateral security agreement to allow the troops to stay in Afghanistan. And this individual, Ghani, well, they pushed him to become president. He became president to help John Kerry, and he signed that deal because they knew they needed to keep the troops in there. They knew that the troops were never going to come out of Afghanistan. They're protecting the poppy fields. So right now, it looks like the leaders of Afghanistan, they want to take the lead on the peace talks, and the U.S. wants to push this agenda forward because what they're really looking to do is they're looking to participate and they're looking to have actual peace talks. Yes, in the past, all this talk about peace and things like that was about protecting the poppy fields, was to keep the war going. But from the actions of what Trump and the Patriots have been doing, we can see that North Korea, no war. Syria, that is coming to an end and the troops will be coming home. Same thing in Iraq. So everything that we're seeing right now is the opposite of what we experienced before. Before, the deep state had the control. They controlled the narrative of everything. Now they don't. The opposite is happening. When Trump and the Patriots are talking about bringing the troops home, they're really talking about bringing the troops home. when they're talking about having peace in North Korea and having no war and having a peace summit, they're really talking about having a peace deal and a summit. When they're talking about peace in Afghanistan and bringing this war, of 17 years to an end, they're really talking about having this war come to an end. When they're talking about going after the Islamic State, yes, they're going after the deep state paid mercenary army, the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra. Remember, all of these entities, they were created by the deep state to push their agenda. Now, they're being destroyed. And right now, Russia has been asked by Trump, and they both agreed, to help out with North Korea. Now, I think Russia was always part of this, and I think it's just being released to the public now. I think China, Russia, they've always worked with the U.S. to help with the peace negotiations in North Korea. And I think what Trump is doing right now is he's just bringing this out into the open and saying that Russia is going to be involved in the talks with North Korea, going to be working with the president of North Korea. And Russia went out and they agreed to help with this process. Out in Syria, we see more weapons have been confiscated from the Islamic State, the paid mercenary army, and a lot of these weapons are Israeli made. There's bombs, there's other type of weapons. A lot of weapons have been found from France, from the UK, from the US, and they were all in the hands of the terrorist groups. Why? Because they supported them. So what we see happening right now is Putin, Trump, and everyone else, they're calling the deep state on their propaganda. With the indictments, they just called out Mueller and said, go ahead, come on over, we'll allow this. With everything else, with the Middle East and everything else, they're calling them out at every turn. And what's going to happen is the deep state is either just going to fold, and that's going to be it, which I don't think they're going to do because they never do that. I think they're going to push something, and they're going to push it hard. What that will be, we don't know as of yet, but we can see that they were planning on riots. They might be planning on a civil war. Even though Q said there will be no civil war, the deep state will try something, and if all else fails, they might even try something even larger, something on the magnitude of 9/11, something like that. It might have to do with a cyber attack, with physical attacks, but we can see that they're not just going to lay down and take it. They're going to come back, because if they do decide to just give up, what happens? Well, it looks like then they'll have to stand trial. And they don't want to do that. Or they'll run, or they'll commit suicide. So time is ticking down now for the deep state. And before you know it, August will be here. Before you know it, the Inspector General report will be declassified. Once that happens, I believe this is game over. And this is the part we should be worried about, because the deep state will not let it get that far without doing something, without some type of an event to distract from that, because that is something they don't want out there. So we'll have to monitor the situation. We can see right now the deep state, they're scrambling, and the plan is on track.